Have you ever been caught in a pocket of stillness with someone you thought you knew inside and out, only to have them ask a single, unexpected question that makes your entire world tilt on its axis? That's precisely what happened to me one late summer Tuesday, sitting in the living room of our old family home on the coast. What began as just another movie night bloomed into an emotional revelation I was in no way prepared for, a moment that reshaped not only how I saw my brother, but how I saw myself. If you believe you truly know someone, just wait until their vulnerability catches you completely off guard. Before I unfold the rest of this night, take a second to hit like and subscribe. It really does help more than you know. And if you're drawn into stories like this, I want you here for every one of them. Also tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Are you in a small town where the evenings fall slow and gentle, or in a city where the lights never quite go dark? I never thought Tuesday nights would become sacred to me, but ever since I'd moved back home for what remained of the summer, they had. There was something about the way Leo and I could exist together in the same space. The low hum of the television, a mere backdrop to the unspoken conversation flowing between us. That night, the living room was bathed in a soft, honeyed glow from a brass floor lamp, the light spilling across the worn Persian rug and our mismatched armchairs. Outside, the rhythmic crash of waves pressed against the windows, a constant soothing reminder that the world was alive and moving on while we remained cocooned in our little bubble. Leo had claimed the big leather recliner, his throne of choice, while I curled up on the old sofa, a blanket draped over my legs. The film on the screen was a moody, black and white classic we both secretly adored, but would never admit to liking in public. I had a bowl of cherries in my lap, and the scent of sea salt and old wood from the fireplace mingled with the sweet, tart fruit, creating an atmosphere of profound comfort. We didn't speak much at first, letting the stark scenes play out with only the occasional shared glance. Leo leaned back, hands laced behind his head, his eyes fixed on the flickering monochrome images. I'd find myself glancing at him, studying the way the soft light carved out the strong line of his jaw, or the subtle crinkle at the corners of his eyes when a scene amused him. I didn't realize I was staring until he turned his head, catching me in the act. "You're a million miles away," he said quietly. There was no teasing in his tone, only a soft curiosity that made my chest tighten. "Just lost in the film," I said quickly, flustered, though a blush crept up my neck anyway. He smiled faintly, letting it go, and I turned my attention back to the screen. But the moment lingered, like a current in the air, a delicate thread connecting us in a way that felt new, not uncomfortable, just fragile. As the movie unfolded, a particularly poignant scene played out. The main character, a woman who had spent her life performing for others, finally let her mask slip in a moment of raw, heartbreaking honesty. I felt my own throat tighten, and I knew Leo had noticed my sudden stillness. When the credits began to roll, he didn't speak right away, which was unusual. He was normally quick with a sarcastic comment or a witty observation. But this time, he just let out a long, slow breath, as if carefully weighing the words he was about to release into the quiet room. Then came the question, simple on the surface, but it landed with the force of a revelation. "Clara," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, "do you ever feel like you're wearing a mask that no one bothers to look behind?" The words were simple, but the weight behind them was crushing in the most beautiful way. I turned to him, trying to read his expression in the dim light. He looked vulnerable, exposed, something I was unaccustomed to seeing in my older brother. There was no bravado, no confident facade, just Leo, truly looking at me, as if he desperately wanted me to understand a truth he hadn't been able to articulate until now. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in my throat, and admitted with raw honesty, "Yeah, all the time. More than I'd like to admit." He nodded slowly, a look of profound relief washing over his face, as if my confession had lifted a burden he'd been carrying alone. "I feel that too," he confessed, his voice almost cracking, "and I guess I just needed to know if you ever felt that way with me." That question, so unexpected and so intimate, sent a deep ripple through me. The room felt warmer, quieter, as if the world outside our little sanctuary had faded to black. It was in that moment I realized my connection with Leo went deeper than casual companionship or sibling banter. It was rooted in a profound mutual understanding, in a shared vulnerability we rarely expressed aloud. I reached over, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear, and looked him directly in the eye. "I do," I said, my voice steady. "I feel it with you more than anyone. You see me, Leo, you really see me." He smiled, but it wasn't the cocky grin I was used to. It was soft, sincere, almost tender, and I felt my chest swell with a mixture of overwhelming relief and warmth. That night, as we sat together in the comfortable silence, the movie long forgotten, I discovered a new dimension to our relationship, a quiet trust that didn't need words, yet spoke volumes. And in that moment, I understood that love and understanding didn't always announce themselves with grand gestures. Sometimes it arrived in the gentle vulnerability of a single question, the honest sharing of a hidden fear, and the unspoken promise that you would always see and be seen by someone who mattered more than you could ever explain. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my bedroom curtains, painting bright stripes across the wooden floor. I lay there for a while, just listening to the quiet hum of the house, replaying last night's conversation with Leo over and over in my mind. It was strange how one simple question could linger like a soft echo, bouncing around the empty chambers of my heart. I felt lighter yet oddly exposed, as if I had allowed him to see a part of me I kept hidden from the rest of the world. Downstairs, the house smelled of sizzling bacon and brewing coffee. Leo was already in the kitchen, humming softly to himself, the sound of his presence filling the otherwise still morning. I paused in the doorway, taking in the sight of him. The way he leaned over the counter, scrambling eggs with an effortless focus, the sunlight catching the edges of his hair and making him glow. I smiled without meaning to. I couldn't help it. He turned when he heard me enter, a grin spreading across his face. "Morning, sleepyhead. Didn't think you'd be up this early," he said, his voice warm and familiar. But for some reason I heard it differently this time. "Yeah, well, the sunlight apparently," I said, brushing my hair behind my ear. I tried to act casual, but my heart was racing in a way that made my stomach flutter. We ate breakfast in a comfortable silence, the occasional clink of cutlery punctuating the soft hum of the morning. Normally, Leo would fill the air with teasing remarks or stories about his friends, but today he was quieter, more reflective. I noticed the way he paused before taking a bite, as if carefully choosing his words, and it made me realize that last night's conversation had lingered for him too. Finally he spoke, his tone more serious than usual. "Clara, about last night, I've been thinking. I don't think I say it enough, but I really value the way we talk, the way we can just be with each other, you know?" I nodded, feeling a warmth spread across my chest. "I know, me too. It feels safe with you, like I don't have to pretend." His smile was small but genuine, and for a moment, the air between us was filled with a quiet understanding that didn't need to be spoken aloud. We finished breakfast, and I decided to go outside for a walk, hoping the fresh air would calm the swirl of emotions in my mind. The backyard was alive with early morning energy. The grass sparkled with dew, and the trees swayed gently in the breeze, casting dancing shadows on the ground. Leo joined me, and we walked side by side down the familiar cliff path. The crunch of gravel under our shoes, the only sound aside from the distant cry of gulls. We didn't talk much at first, just letting the world move around us. But then he stopped, turning to face me, his expression serious yet tender. "Do you ever feel crushed by everyone's expectations?" he asked quietly. I blinked, caught off guard again. His questions had a way of digging deeper than I ever expected. "Yeah," I admitted slowly. "Sometimes it feels like I'm carrying a backpack full of rocks I didn't put there, and I forget to carry myself." He nodded, and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart skip, a kind of empathy and understanding that I hadn't realized I craved so deeply. "I feel the same way," he said, "and I think sometimes we forget that it's okay to just set the backpack down, to just be without proving anything." The honesty in his words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I felt an overwhelming urge to tell him everything, to let him see every fear, every doubt, every tiny insecurity I usually hid from the world. And in that moment, I realized that with Leo, I could. We walked a little further, and then he paused near the old wooden fence that bordered our property, overlooking the sea. The sunlight filtered through the leaves above, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the ground. He looked at me, and I could see the weight of unspoken thoughts in his gaze. "Clara," he began, his voice softer now, almost hesitant. "I know I don't always show it, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Not for what you do or what you achieve, but just for you. For your heart. I felt a lump rise in my throat, my eyes stinging with sudden tears. I wasn't expecting that. "Leo, thank you," I whispered. "That means more than you'll ever know." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. A gesture so familiar, so simple, yet it carried a tenderness that made my chest ache with affection. "I just want you to be happy, Clara," he said. "Truly, deeply happy." I nodded, trying to steady myself, and suddenly the cliff path didn't feel like just a path anymore. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where our souls could meet without fear, where words and silences coexisted perfectly. As we walked back toward the house, the air seemed lighter, charged with a quiet intimacy that didn't need labels or definitions. I realized that our bond had shifted. It was no longer just about sibling comfort or shared memories. It had become a deep mutual respect and understanding, a recognition of each other's vulnerabilities and strengths. That afternoon, we spent hours together in small, mundane ways. He helped me fix a wobbly shelf in my room, and I made a pitcher of iced tea for us to sip on the porch. Every glance, every smile carried the weight of our newfound closeness. Yet it was effortless, natural. It was in these tiny, seemingly ordinary moments that I felt the most extraordinary connection to him, a quiet but powerful awareness that some relationships can evolve in ways you never see coming. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the clouds with hues of orange and violet, I realized something profound. The questions that scared me, the truths I hesitated to voice, they were the very things that created space for love, trust, and understanding to grow. And with Leo, I was beginning to understand the beauty of being fully seen, fully heard, and fully valued for simply being myself. The days that followed were quiet, ordinary, yet they carried an undercurrent of something new, something fragile and precious. There was a rhythm to our time together that I had never noticed before. The way Leo could make me laugh with a small, silly joke. The way I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way our silences felt heavy with understanding rather than awkwardness. But as much as I treasured it, I could feel a new tension building, subtle but undeniable, like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon, waiting for the right moment to break. One Thursday evening, we found ourselves back on the couch, the same one we had shared countless movie nights on before. This time, it was another old film, one neither of us had seen, something with sharp shadows and a theme of unspoken longing. I curled up under the blanket, and Leo reclined in his chair, his expression distant, thoughtful. I could tell he was holding something back, a question or a thought that hovered just beyond his lips. Halfway through the film, the protagonist, tired and conflicted, uttered a line that made me flinch. We spend our lives performing for an audience of one ourselves. I glanced at Leo, and for a moment the air between us shifted. He met my eyes, and I saw the faintest flicker of hesitation. It was as if he had been steeling himself for something he didn't quite know how to say. My heart quickened. There was a weight in that gaze, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. Finally, he broke the silence. "Clara, can I ask you something? Something I've been turning over in my head." His voice was low, careful, almost trembling, and it made my stomach clench with anticipation. "Of course," I said, trying to keep my tone steady, though my chest felt tight. He shifted, leaning forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees. "Do you ever worry that I might not understand you fully? That maybe I don't really see you, not all the way, even after all this time?" The question hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't accusatory or bitter. It was tender, fragile, almost afraid. I realized in that moment that Leo, who had always seemed so self-assured, harbored insecurities I had never imagined. It made me feel a rush of protective affection and an overwhelming urge to reassure him. "Leo," I said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. "I see you, and I feel like I'm seen by you too. We understand each other more than we know." He exhaled, a sound of relief mingled with lingering anxiety. Sometimes I think I miss things, little things that matter, and I hate the idea of letting you down." I felt a lump form in my throat. I wanted to hold him in that moment, to tell him everything, that he had never let me down, that his presence alone was enough, that his concern showed his heart more clearly than words ever could. But instead, I squeezed his hand gently, letting silence speak the words I couldn't find. The movie played on, unnoticed. Shadows flickered across his face, and I watched him, trying to memorize the subtle curve of his jaw, the way his eyes softened when he laughed quietly at a scene on the screen. The more I observed him, the more I realized how deeply I cared. Not just as a sister, but as someone who had found in him a rare kind of understanding, a connection that transcended simple familiarity. Eventually I spoke again. Leo, I think part of being seen isn't about perfection. It's about effort. It's about showing up, listening, caring. And you do that every day. You might not always realize it, but you do. He looked at me then, a long, slow glance that carried an intensity I couldn't quite place. Clara, do you really mean that? I nodded. Every word, and honestly, I think I've learned more from you than I ever tell you. About patience, about kindness, about noticing the little things that matter. A silence fell, but it was a comfortable one, filled with shared understanding. For a moment, I felt as if time had slowed, that the world outside our living room had paused so that we could inhabit this small space of truth and vulnerability. Then the tension shifted again, subtler this time, almost imperceptible. Leo's voice lowered, hesitant but resolute. Clara, do you think maybe we take each other for granted sometimes? I mean, I feel like we don't say enough about how much we matter to each other. I felt a pang of guilt. He was right. We had spent so many years side by side, thinking that simply existing in each other's presence was enough. We hadn't always said the things that mattered, hadn't always expressed the quiet gratitude and admiration that had built between us. I think you're right, I admitted softly. We do take it for granted sometimes. But maybe now we can change that. Start noticing, start saying it more. His expression softened and a small, almost shy smile appeared. I'd like that, he said. Really? We sat there, our hands still clasped, feeling the delicate weight of truth settle between us. That night I realized that love, respect, and understanding weren't static. They required courage, attention, and the willingness to be vulnerable. And Leo had taught me that lesson without even meaning to, simply by asking the questions that mattered and daring to listen to the answers. Later, when I went to bed, the memory of our conversation stayed with me. I felt a strange combination of exhilaration and peace, as if a door had opened inside me that I hadn't even known was closed. I understood then that true connection wasn't just about closeness or familiarity. It was about honesty, about allowing someone to see your flaws and strengths alike, and trusting that they would embrace both. And in that quiet reflection, I felt a surge of gratitude for Leo, for our shared moments, for the small but profound ways in which we had begun to truly understand each other. I knew there were still questions left unasked, still vulnerabilities waiting to be revealed. But I also knew that whatever came next, we would face it together with respect, trust, and an unspoken promise to truly see each other. The weekend arrived with a calm, golden light that seemed to soften every corner of our home. It was one of those rare mornings where the air felt almost tangible, full of possibility, quiet enough that even the smallest sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of a lawnmower, stood out. I woke up with a sense of anticipation, though I couldn't quite place why. Maybe it was because Leo and I had finally begun saying the things that mattered, allowing ourselves to be seen fully without reservation. By mid-morning, we were sitting on the sun-drenched deck, mugs of steaming tea in hand. The wooden boards beneath our feet creaked softly as we shifted, sunlight pouring over us like a gentle embrace. I watched Leo, the way his eyes caught the light, the subtle curve of his smile when he noticed me staring. I felt a swell of gratitude, a quiet awe at the bond we had nurtured, often unknowingly over the years. Clara, he said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence, do you ever think about how fast everything changes? How life just moves? I turned to him, catching the seriousness behind his words. All the time, I admitted. Sometimes I wish I could pause it, even for a little while, to really notice everything, like right now. He nodded, his gaze distant as if he were measuring the weight of time itself. I think about it a lot too, and I realize I don't want to take any of it for granted. Not our talks, not these moments, not you. My heart skipped. The words were simple, but they carried a depth that took my breath away. There was no dramatics, no exaggeration, just a quiet truth, a recognition of care and presence that resonated deeper than I had expected. Leo, I began, my voice trembling slightly. You've always been there, but now I feel like I see you differently, and I think maybe you see me differently too. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face, his fingers warm against my skin. "I do," he said softly. "I see you, Clara. All of you. And I think that's what makes everything else feel easier, lighter." I swallowed, emotions tingling like ribbons in my chest. "I feel the same way," I whispered. "You showed me that it's okay to be honest, to be vulnerable. And I don't think I ever fully appreciated that before." He smiled, a slow, heartfelt smile that made my chest ache with affection. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But now I know how much it matters, how much we matter to each other." We sat in silence for a long time after that, just letting the world move around us while we remained in our little bubble of understanding. The breeze shifted, carrying the scent of salt from the sea below. And for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace. It wasn't the absence of worries or uncertainties. It was the presence of trust, of love, of a bond that had deepened into something almost sacred. Later, we decided to take a walk down to the rocky shore, the sun low in the sky, casting long golden shadows. We strolled side by side, our steps unhurried, and every glance and smile felt layered with meaning. The world was alive, but we existed in our own quiet rhythm, moving together yet independently, connected through shared experience and mutual understanding. At one point, Leo stopped on a flat, sun-warmed rock and gestured for me to sit beside him. I did, brushing the loose pebbles with my hands, feeling the solid earth beneath me. He sat beside me, and for a moment we didn't speak, just watched the sky shift from gold to deepening pink. "Clara," he said finally, his voice soft but clear, "I want you to know that no matter what happens, no matter where life takes us, I'll always be your anchor, not for what you do but for who you are, and I hope you feel the same about me." I turned to him, my eyes misting, and smiled through the blur of tears. "I do, Leo. I always have and I always will." He squeezed my hand gently, a silent acknowledgement of everything we had shared, all the unspoken truths that had brought us to this moment. And I realized then that our relationship had grown into something rare and precious, not defined by grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but by small, consistent acts of presence, understanding, and care. As the sky deepened into twilight, I felt a profound sense of clarity. Life would continue to change, of course. Challenges would arise, and moments of uncertainty would test us. But I knew one thing for certain. Leo and I had discovered a connection that was unshakable, built on honesty, respect, and a willingness to truly see one another. That night, as we returned home and settled into the familiar comfort of the living room, I felt a gentle warmth envelop me. The movie we put on was secondary. The real story was the one unfolding between us, quiet and tender, full of depth and understanding. And in that story I found not only my brother, but a companion, a confidant, and a mirror to my own heart. I went to bed that night with a calm I hadn't felt before, a soft smile lingering on my lips. I thought of Leo, of the moments that had built our bond, and of the simple truth that love, in all its forms, is not always loud or dramatic, but often quiet, steady, and life-changing in the most unexpected of ways. And I learned that sometimes the most profound love story you'll ever have is the one you discover by finally, truly seeing the person who was there all along,